All the way live. Good evening, Facebook. My name is Chuck Fagan, and this is a special presentation of the Better Savannah Facebook page. As a reminder, Better Savannah is the Savannah and Chatham County area's leading independent expenditure committee focused on progressive policy outcomes here at the local level. Tonight, we've got a special treat. We've got the 2nd District Republican nominee for the county commission, Mr. Larry Gator Rivers, a world-renowned traveler, basketball player, and overall leader in the Savannah community. Gator, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. Why don't you give us an introduction and explain who you are to our viewers, and we'll get into the questions.
I appreciate that opportunity, Chuck. My name is Larry Gator Rivers, formerly of the Harlem Globetrotter, Beach High Bulldog for life, and the greatest ball handler in the world. If you don't believe me, just ask me. Thanks for having me, Chuck.
Hey, it's no problem. Larry, this is your hometown. What do you think's great about Chatham County? What do you think needs improving? You're running for a seat that was held by another, very well-regarded local coach, the former Coach Holmes. Rest in peace. We really, regretted losing him to COVID-19 this year, a very stark reminder of the pandemic that we've been in. Why don't you tell me some of your ideas for what the county should be doing next?
Well, it's only fitting that you mention Coach Holmes, is because Coach Holmes's concept for mentoring is what I plan to use to enhance our communities. There was a team that Coach Holmes played on as well as coached called the Jets. And I do plan to use recreation as a means to unite this community as well as bring activities here for our youth.
Thanks, Gator. Gator, recently Chatham County was told by the city of Pooler that they would not allow a ballot drop box to be located on Pooler city property. Given the long delays in the vote at the Pooler precinct, the last 2 election cycles, do you think this is acceptable? Do you think that there should have been some leadership from the county, with one of its second largest municipality?
The mayor, who's the mayor?
She's the mayor of Benton, I think is her name. Her and the city manager and the city attorney. Yeah, so they did not want the liability, but do you think that there should have been some leadership from the county there?
Oh, by all means, I do. By all means, I think the county definitely should take some leadership in that aspect, because, the county is the people, and the people's voices needed to be heard in that capacity.
Right. Well, we've had a lot of complaints about not only the elections board, but just the execution of all of our elections. Do you think that the county government should look at either reforming the elections board or the registrar's board? What do you think we should be doing there?
Definitely. I think that Augusta is a good model that we could use for the election situation, because theirs is all in one. And I think that would really alleviate a lot of the problems that we're having and things being all over the place.
Gator, you've obviously traveled the world, but you were born here, raised here, and you came back here. Over the last 2 decades, Chatham County has experienced record growth, and this comes in all forms, whether it's development, the port tonnage, yet the poverty rate still remains around 17 to 17.5%. That's been pretty consistent the last 20 years. What do you think it says with all this growth and the poverty? We're just growing the amount of people that we have in poverty. What do you think about that?
We need new energy. We need new energy because, in our old system, I think our leaders have kept us in a mind, in a state of poverty in the way we think. We're not looking at ways to improve ourselves we seem to rely on our leaders to come up with programs that would help us in those areas. I think, you know, new energy would say, hey, what can we do for ourselves rather than what can what can be done for us by our leaders. So, you know, I think that has been the reason that there hasn't been growth, is because our leaders haven't really developed the workforce as well as programs to apprenticeships, you know, to teach our young folks the necessary skills to take part in job opportunities that are available here for them. I don't think there's been a big enough push in preparing our youth, not just in the workforce, but in their attitudes toward work, their attitudes toward each other. And I think that has a great deal to do with what's going on in our government now, our city and local government. We don't have a spirit of cooperation. We don't have that let's get it done, let's work together.
I see. I appreciate that answer. I want to talk about housing. Where'd you grow up in Savannah, Gator?
I grew up in the heart of downtown Savannah. Mm-hmm. I grew up around Crawford Square, 539 East York Street, right across the street from Second African Baptist Church. And I'm so proud of it. I was born there. I was born on York Street. And we were one of the few families in that area that owned our property. We were not renting. We owned a 3-story building there. I was talking to a few people the other day about that, and I'm thinking it's one of those was one of those historical buildings right next door to the old what was it called, Kate Baldwin Free Kindergarten there on the corner of Houston in York. I used to play with those kids in the playground there every day.
Well, the reason I asked you that, Gator, is, you know, you were born and raised in an area that, you know, now sells for $400 a square foot, right? You know, and affordable housing is hard to come by. You know, you or I may not be able to afford certainly to buy, you know, much less maybe even rent there these days. Last time in the SPLOST 7, the city of Savannah put aside $10 million in their request for affordable housing. Do you think the county should be having some role here? How can we make it so that it is still affordable for working class people to live here? I think that's a big part of the poverty equation we're kind of focused on.
Take a lesson from Crawford Square. Crawford Square went in and they renovated those homes to a standard that we can't afford, you can't afford, and a lot of other people can't afford to live down there. We could do that same concept in affordable housing. You look at Can Park, look at that area, okay? Let's say we go in there and do what I wanted to do with Crawford Square as far as beautify the basketball court by putting a surface down there that's attractive and safe for our youth, okay? We enhance the basketball court, that we enhance the playground, which is the heart of our community, because we say that our kids are the future. So if that's the case, enhance that area and then enhance the housing around it. You have a lot of blatant homes, you know, old blatant homes around there that people have left to their kids, and their kids have moved away and just let the property sit. And the city is come up with a plan where they're talking about taking those properties and fixing them up. Well, that's an excellent idea. Well, why don't we come up with a program that would renovate those homes and bring in families, and create affordable houses, and bring in families and beautify that area, and like a Crawford Square, and then have the tour buses come all the way out that way then and show them what we've done to Crawford, to Can Park, like we've done to Crawford Square. You know, Crawford Square is the only one don't have a walking tour.
Sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that those residents want the tourism coming into the neighborhood, but
I
that's
think they do.
another argument. Well, you may know something that I don't. Let me ask you a question about term limits. Your predecessor was there for a long time. There are several county commissioners who have been on the county commission for well in excess of 15 years. The county chairman and the city of Savannah mayor are limited to 2 terms. Would you support, and whether it's 2, 3, or 4 terms, we can talk about the number. Do you support the idea of term limits?
I would think that would be something that we definitely should look into, time limits, because like I said, new energy. People get into that position and they just go stale. They want to keep doing things the way it's been done back in the day. But I mean, 2 terms is long enough. I think 2 terms would be a decent amount of time to spend before you get some new energy in there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that answer. Another question, and this is, again, something that a lot of average voters wouldn't think about, but Chatham County has not employed a lobbyist at the state capitol for the last 6 years. And in 2015, and I remember this point blank period, I was there, the chairman stood up in a public meeting and said, I've been in politics in Georgia for 40 years and I can do all the lobbying that we need. Do you think that Chatham County should have a consistent presence
I thought
at the state capitol?
I thought they did. They were
I
talking a few years.
Any money spent to a lobbyist in the last 5 years for Chatham County.
Okay, Chatham County. Oh, well, I remember the city was
Savannah does. The city of Savannah does, but we're talking about the county government.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. I did see that in the city, and I think it should be done as well in the county. And when we talk about voting, I mean, all this Democrat and Republican, and locally we need to think nonpartisan. We need to think of the best person for the job and what they bring to the table as far as resources, more so than what party they're affiliated to. I've had people to tell me that, they didn't even want to talk to me because I'm running as a Republican. Well, if you knew my story, you'd talk to me, you know what I'm saying? But, getting back to lobbying, we definitely should have that done. We should have that.
Well, let me follow up with a question about that, because I think it's been some criticism of you that, you probably somebody who's voted for Democrats, in the past or supported Democrats in the past, and now you're voting as a Republican. From what I understand, I think it was more about ballot access than, an ideology of any one party. Why don't you respond to that criticism directly, Gator?
Well, okay, let me understand. You said as far as
some have criticized you because you're running as a Republican.
Yeah.
And this is a district that has primarily supported Democrats in the past, but there was obviously a very crowded field for the
crowded field. Yes, it was a crowded field, and it was some shenanigans in that field that brought me to this here. Being an independent, I came in as an independent. I'm still an independent thinker. Even in the past, my thoughts have always been, the best person for the job. More so than what party they're affiliated to. So I told them from the beginning that my being involved with the Harlem Globetrotters and our fight against racism, we've always gone into situations where we're going in as entertainers to all people, not to a certain party. So when I look at politics and I look at getting a seat on a committee, I'm looking at it as being able to do something for that particular committee or for that community, more so than what party I'm affiliated to. And like you said, I did try to when I signed up, it didn't matter. It didn't matter to me what party I was going to be affiliated with. So I went in as an independent, and I was told that as an independent, I would have to get 900 signatures in order to get on the ballot in the primary. So a friend came to me and said, "Hey, why don't you just declare yourself a Republican or a Democrat and get into the primary. And then I looked at the field, and all these Democrats was in one area. I said, you know, by the time I get through that, I could very easily be eliminated.
Right.
So I looked at the other side, but I still signed up as a Democrat. And then the party signed me up in the wrong district, signed me up in 3, and you know, for the general, they signed me up for the District 3, which if that had gone in, I would have been disqualified.
Right.
Okay. So, and then when I went back to them to straighten it out, they told me it was too late. You know, I couldn't run now. It was too late. And the Republicans said that, you know, they said that's a lie. You can still run. So they signed me up as a Republican, and I got in. You know, because I don't know that much about how the election process go. I'm just a rookie at this thing. You know.
I hear you. Well, you know, you've traveled the world. You know, obviously a successful career. You know, both on and off the basketball court. What do you think that perspective of being a world traveler? You know, I read a statistic that the average American will never leave this country. You know, and if they do, it's probably to a bordering country or something very nearby.
Something like that, yeah.
And you have been all over the world.
You know, when I left Savannah, man, I at that point I hadn't been as far. The longest trip I took was to Atlanta, Georgia, and that took me 9 hours on a Greyhound bus. You know, to have had the opportunity to have done 6 world tours, you know, to have been every place, every major city in the United States. You know, it sometimes I look at it as wow, you know, did I really do that? You know what I'm saying? Did I really do that? But I did, and it gave me a tremendous education as far as people are concerned. And I love people. People have been very good to me. They've treated me wonderful every place I've gone. And it could be because of who I went as, you know, as a Harlem Globetrotter. But I'd like to believe that it was because of my personality and the way I treated them that made them gravitate to me more so than the uniform I was wearing.
Thank you for that answer. I want to talk about an issue that we've been pushing and asking a lot of the candidates this year about, and that is the Savannah Economic Development Authority. It's known as SEDA here, and this organization is legally contracted. It's authorized via county, city, and state legislation to make tax abatements and incentives to companies to open up jobs. So, you know, they give away incentives in exchange for jobs. There's 2 structural issues that we're really focused on SEDA. The first, Gator, is the structure of the appointments of the board. All right. So there's something like 19 or 21 board of directors on this organization. And currently, the structure is that 1/3 of the appointments are made by the county, 1/3 of the appointments are made by the city, and the last third of those appointments are made by the SEDA board itself. Okay. So it's one of these sort of structural things that when people say, oh, it's the same old people on these boards, they see the same names from the Airport Commission and the Bond Authority and the SEDA board, you know, getting appointed over and over. That's one of those ways that happens. Now, this language in the law, you know, is basically 20 years old, right? And I would say in the last 20 years, Savannah's become a much more regional and almost even national economy. Would you support changing that structure of how the board gets appointed to maybe include another municipality like Pooler or Garden City coming to the table to be able to, you know, sometimes appoint a member to that board? What do you think about the structure of that board of directors?
Yes, you know, yes, I truly believe that bringing in new blood or bringing in more blood would really help. And, you know, like you said, a lot of this stuff, for example, you look at giving incentives for businesses to take place, and, you know, to come into this area. you know, back in it was a time when we didn't have to do a whole lot with real estate, because real estate was going was going fairly well, and then we hit that drop, whereas
2009.
yeah, where we hit that drop, and we were struggling with real estate. And so, you know, incentives to get things done in the real estate area was appropriate, I think, you know, to get things going again. But, you know, we're better now. You know, that's a little better now. We're selling homes, we're building homes, and the economy in that area has really changed a lot. So we
Yes.
need to look at what's going on now, and then look at what was happening then, and see where the change is needed. And this needs to be in all the districts, for all the districts, not just, you know, not just District 2. But yeah, the Pula, I think, and other places like that, I think they should be able to come into the mix,
So
because
just to follow up, and I'm not trying to press you to commit to everything here, but on this specific issue, would you support changing the law to eliminate that last third of those board appointments from the board itself, and then maybe spread it out amongst some of the other municipalities in the county? We think that would bring more representation to that process of incentives to companies
yes,
for jobs.
yes,
Would you support that specific
yes,
change?
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
The other big issue with CETA, Gator, is there is no language requiring independent audits of the deals that are made. Now, CETA will tell you that they audit all of their own deals, you know, but that's a self-audit done by their own organization.
Yeah.
You know, it's not independent. And so again, you know, when a company says, you know, over 10 years, we're going to bring like the Rockingham Farms deal, which was recently done with the city, we're going to bring 2,500 jobs. Well, you know, I would like for us to, in 10 years, be able to look back and see, did they actually perform, and have someone as an independent auditor verify that. What do you think about that?
Regularly scheduled audits. I think, you know, it needs to be done on a regular basis, so you can stay on top of it. I think if you just do it haphazardly or sparingly, you're going to miss a lot of stuff. But if you do it on a regular basis, anything done on a regular basis, I think, is going to be better for you than something that's just done sporadically.
Well, I know that you traveled during this era, but I believe it was one of the most popular Republican presidents ever to say, trust but verify. You know, again, it's not that I don't trust that CETA is trying to do the right thing. It's that I want to verify
Verification.
what exactly it is they're doing.
We had that deal with the city where they had an audit. You know, the only thing I saw wrong with that is it's very difficult to audit when you don't know what you're looking for. You know, usually when there's an audit, usually when there's an audit, you have an idea of what's wrong. You know, you have some indication. You don't just audit to try to find something wrong, you know, because I mean, if I'm handling the audit, I'm not going to give you what you think you're looking for. You know, I'm going to make my books look as good as I can get it to look. But if you know something is wrong and you got the proof and the evidence, there's nothing I can do now, you know, because you got proof of what's going on and why the audit is necessary. But yeah, I just think that regularly scheduled audits should be in place in order to stay on top of what's going on. So you'll know, because people need to know.
I really appreciate that answer, Gator. I want to stop and just make a point to, people that are viewing this live and that will view this replay. This issue, these two things about the Savannah Economic Development Authority have had almost universal support for changing by every county commission candidate, both in the primaries and in these general elections. 99% of the candidates we've interviewed has agreed with these types of changes. We think that they are very sound and democratic leaning, as we think they'll open up, the process. And I just want that our audience to really stop and pay attention, that this is something that should be changed during the next term of commission, because it has been very much agreed upon by the majority of candidates that we have interviewed. I really appreciate your answers. I want to move on to something you just mentioned, which was the real estate and development industry here in Savannah. As I said earlier, we've had record growth the last 20 years. Gator, since 1990, counties and cities have been able to implement what are called impact fees for new development. And this is to offset the cost of increased infrastructure costs to that same government because of that new development, right? Our immediate neighbors to the west and south, Effingham County and Bryan County, both have impact fee schedules, and these are beyond water and sewer hookups that are charged at the municipal level, already, right? So we're talking about, pre-collected fees, to help pay for recreation, roads and drainage, public safety infrastructure. Those costs come up routinely. This is something that there are over 140 counties and cities in Georgia that do this now. So, clearly it's a policy that is being used elsewhere. Last year or the year before last, there was, 2018, there was $500 million in the city. You can easily guess that there's at least, 1/5 of that any given year in the county. Do you think that rather than raising property taxes, that the county government should look to this source for some revenue, given that the real estate development community is at all-time highs here in Chatham County?
Well, have a town hall meeting and ask the voters, about fees and home builders development groups. Get them together and come up with some solutions, because all of us, everybody is dealing with this tax, the home builders as well as the homeowners. So, we should all have some type of say as far as what's going on with this. And the only way you're going to know is to talk to the people, and if people understand what's going on, then if there's a true need for tax raise, and you understand why, then it wouldn't hurt as much. But when you're doing these things, man, and the people have no clue as to what's going on, it's been no real transparency as far as that goes, then it's very difficult, and then we also need to make sure that these companies coming in are paying what we would call a livable wage, something a wage that we can live with.
I appreciate that. I do want to follow up with just another question in that, you grew up on Crawford Square, like you said. I live on another square in downtown Savannah, and these are properties that have had their taxes. Someone's been paying taxes on that house you grew up in since before your family owned it, right? And when we aggressively grow and we build 5,000 homes, over the next 8 years, if you serve 2 terms like you want to serve, this county will see 5,000 new homes minimum built in this county, right? Those 5,000 homes, they have to have police protection. They have to have fire protection. They have to have good roads, to and from their new development, right? When we don't have some funds from that development, we're basically, in fact, subsidizing, their costs of infrastructure, because this is going to take 10 years of their property taxes to pay for it. They're going to take it from our property taxes now. This is a very basic concept to me. So, it's prepaid revenue to offset the cost of infrastructure needed. What do you think about this concept?
I think it seems only natural that you should put some of the responsibility on those people who are building it, because they're profiting from it, from building it, and then they're walking away leaving it, and from that point on, we're paying to maintain our structure, our infrastructure, as far as the roads and sewage is concerned. So I think that they should have some responsibility as far as paying some type of
John, I noticed that you popped back in here. John McMaster's founder of Better Savannah. John, do you know what the single family charge in Sandy Springs was off the top of your head? For,
sure.
Was it 6,000? Was that what it was?
$6,300
It was $6,300. So I wouldn't even ask for that much, but I think, $1,000 or $2,000,
Something,
something
something.
would help offset the cost. With the next issue we're going to talk about here is the Port of Savannah. And this is a very long range, obviously controversial issue. I want people to understand that we're not here to bash them or anyone who benefits from that industry. But there's obvious concerns when we're told that the Port of Savannah is going to double in size and capacity and traffic in the next 8 years. And Chatham County and Savannah, Port Wentworth, Garden City, these cities that are primarily impacted in the county are receiving no direct revenue from this huge source here in Chatham County.
And why is that? The reason being, who controls the docks? Federal?
State.
Federal?
State.
Yeah. State. Mm-hmm. So, maybe we need to get some conversation with them,
Well, I just want to answer this question because we think that the legislative delegation, and by delegation, because I always like to tell voters and people who are interested in understanding how politics works. There are, 3 or 4 or 5 centers of power politically. You got the school board, you got the city, you got the county, you got the delegation, and you got, the federal, congressional delegation, right? And so when I mean the delegation, I mean the state delegation, Lester Jackson, Ron Stevens, Mickey Stevens, newly elected after the runoff certification, Representative-elect Derek Malo, in the 163rd, possibly Marcus Thompson or Ron Stevens in the 164th. Better Savannah has been told by these members that the county commission just simply doesn't ask for anything. And the city never asks for anything aggressively. They send in an agenda, but they never really push for anything. What do you think about that?
You know what the word says. If you don't ask, you won't receive.
Yes.
Yes, it's way overdue that we get something, in that area. But like you say, that state pretty much handles. But I don't see why we can't have some conversation about that. Just on the real side, that it's not something that they can't afford. It's not like we're asking them to bend over backwards and and break the bank. We're talking about, something, just a little something.
And this is another example I brought up. If the Los Angeles Long Beach port, which is the busiest and largest port in the entire world, if they can charge $48 per container that comes through there to be able to go to municipal, causes, we're not asking for anywhere near that. We're talking about $1 or $2 here. Total tonnage last year, we're talking about 15 million. Anybody who says it's going to make them non-competitive, I just try not to buy that argument. You just agree that it's time for them to give something back to the local county and cities, right?
Okay.
Chuck, can I ask Gator a question?
Go ahead, John.
Hey, Gator.
How you doing, John?
Good. I've been here probably not as long as you. I've been here 27 years, and I've seen and heard constantly, from every election cycle about how great Savannah Chatham is doing with port expansion, which you guys are talking about, growth of Savannah College of Art and Design. I think they had 3,000, maybe 4,000 students when I moved here, and now they're at 11,000. The tourism industry has, just quintupled every 5 years, it seems like. And so there's so much bragging and accolades about the growth and development and the prosperity here. Yet the city has a persistent 24, 25, 26% poverty rate, and the county isn't a whole lot better. They're at 17.5. Gator, why don't those metrics change and get better, considering all the prosperity that everyone has seen and everybody talks about?
Well, I look at that situation, you know, you have to go to your leaders. You have to look at your leaders because, you know, if as well as we're supposed to be doing, you know, and you constantly telling your people that, I mean, you need programs, you need help, you know, you're not putting any of the responsibility on them to help themselves, then I think you're doing your people a disservice. But
Thank
you know,
you.
like you say, we're doing too well as a city and a county to have this much poverty in this
Yeah,
area.
the disparities
It's crazy.
are undeniable, constant, unrelenting, and yet we're constantly being told, whether it's the Savannah Morning News or the Business Journal, how great things are.
Mhm.
So, you know, you talked about working with the delegation. I think Chuck's absolutely right. Uh, our leaders have to, number one, understand what possible solutions exist, go to that delegation and say, this is what we need. Working with the delegation has got to be more than just going up for Chatham days and
Thank
eating
you.
a bunch of seafood. And
Thank you.
that's kind of what we're getting.
Thank you. That
Sure.
you are absolutely right. And I saw this when I went up to it and I confronted one of the people that were there and I was asking them about uh, uh, improving my situation as a business owner in Savannah.
Okay.
And instead of them give me some advice, they told me that I needed to go talk to a particular uh, county commissioner. And I'm saying, and I'm talking to the chair at that time. And I'm saying to him, what can he tell me that you can't? You know, so what I'm saying is, you know, that kiss the ring thing, when somebody is trying to do something in the county or the city to improve themselves, and then your people vote against you, you know, I mean, come on. I mean, why all of this division, you know? And I think that's the main thing that's keeping us in this state of needing, of lacking, because we are divided as a people and we're not working together to improve our community.
Yeah, you know, I think the short word for that is we elect a bunch of people on a lot of big promises, and most of them wind up being very lazy.
Very lazy,
They
very lazy.
forget
Because
the campaign rhetoric, and they just fall into a groove of letting staff decide policy. And we all know that the elected official's job, be it at the city or the county, is to create policy, and the staff's job is to develop and implement that policy. So I think we really got, you know, if we elected people that were willing to work a little harder and not accept the status quo, our community would be better served.
and not taking things personal. You
True.
know, not taking things personal. When you're working for the community and you're working against certain people, then you know that's not gonna.
It stops progress because
Uh,
they get bogged down in personality conflicts.
I mean, look at what happened with the county government and the NAACP. How can you have the county chair, president of the NAACP, and get anything done on either on you know when it comes to unfair treatment?
Well, the person you're talking about is also the lobbyist for the last 7 years for Chatham County. So if you're going to be chairman, head of the NAACP, and the chief lobbyist for the county, you accept a lot of responsibilities, and I don't see the work product or the outcomes to justify them taking on those responsibilities. I think that's a shortfall.
My point exactly. My point exactly. You know, and then when you are confronted with an issue dealing with a particular individual in your community, and you just ignore it, I mean,
Yeah.
where does that person go from there?
Gator, let me ask you a hard question. If you want to take a pass on this, I'll fully understand. But you know, the city elections in November, just what, 9 months ago, swept out virtually every incumbent that was running for reelection. Stella Shabazz didn't have any opposition. So we got 7 new people on council. And today they're divided, and the community is saying, why can't they get along? I know that probably won't happen over at the county, but since most of your district is in the city, what do you make of that after that big election and the big cleaning out process? The voters said, let's start over, let's get new people in that are going to do something. And now we have this personality conflict and division between Van's camp and the other side. What, you got anything for us on that?
Other than it's sad.
Yeah.
You know, it's really sad because, you know, I always said when I first came back here, I always said this: if you fix the situation at Beach High School, you'll fix Savannah. It's sad because, you know, you look at the people who are involved in our city government. Most of the leaders came up through Beach High School. And when you look at the division within the high school today, this high school led our attitude toward each other in the city. You see,
Okay.
Wow.
the attitude that we had toward each other, the attitude we had toward the whites, you know, in the city, it came out of the attitude that was developed at Beach High School. When you see the division you're looking at in our city council, it came out of the leadership of Beach High School, because those were the people who were developing those attitudes. Now, I say that because of my experience at Beach High School, what I've experienced in the city of Savannah and coming back here and looking at the fact that, you know, we're divided. I mean, just not being able to volunteer at your old high school means that there's something wrong going on there. It's some personality problems there.
Let me
It's
ask
some
you,
nepotism.
Gator, and I think that's really the point we're making here is a lot of this next generation coming up behind you, and I don't mean to be offensive about age, sir, obviously, but you know, it seems to have been more divided than previous generations.
Yes.
Right? And you know, I wasn't here, John, and you were probably traveling, but you know, I've heard about Floyd Adams and Dana Braun, you know, and Edna Jackson, and so many others. Jeff Belzer, that was the counterpart, correct? You know, and it seems like there's not that you know, that ability to bridge the divide and try to find compromises. And coincidentally, it seems that we over subsidize certain industries during that same time period. I think a lot of this is really, it's mistaking personality conflicts for policy differences. And I would much rather, I give you an opportunity here. You don't have to take it, but you have not run a campaign about your opponent. You've run it about you, you know, and about why you're the best choice for this seat, regardless of party. You know, you've spoken on some ideas here that, quite frankly, members of both parties have shied away from or come out against. You know, and we think these are good ideas we're talking about. These are policy ideas. Why do you think that the local politics lately has fallen trap to personality conflicts rather than policy discussion?
Okay, I'm gonna just go back to policy in the school system. Let's look at just this simple policy. All right, we want to protect our kids, right? So we have policies, whereas we only allow people with certain backgrounds to get involved in our school system as volunteers. And Dr. Levette came up with a program called the Beacon Program. And this program would screen applicants for volunteering.
Mhm.
It's so wrong. I mean, because the people that she is dealing with are some of the people that we need in the school system. You know, people who have had experience with wrongdoing and things that we've gotten. You know, we need our kids to be notified of. And what we're doing, we're taking those people and we're taking them out of our kids' lives. Because if I'm a parent and I can't volunteer at my kid's school,
Sure.
what am I saying to my kids? What does that say to my kid? That
Yeah.
I'm unfit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what these kids are dealing with now. Now you look at this generation coming up now. All right, you said the past generations we're dealing with kids now that have gone through so much division, have gone through so much
trauma, really.
trauma
Yeah.
in their lives, in this generation here. Okay, how can we fix that? We need to start working on these kids in elementary and middle school, changing their mindset as to how they deal with each other. You know, and this is where my anti-bullying program comes in, because the kids are being bullied in the school, parents are being bullied by teachers, teachers are being bullied by board members and superintendents. The board members are being bullied by the superintendent, and the kids ain't being bullied. I mean, the kids ain't got nobody on them. You know, they can talk to teachers and administration any way they want to. So when they leave school, they're doing the same thing with each other. You look at how our city council talk to each other. You look at how they disrespect the mayor. You look at how they disrespect each other. You know, so until we understand that we got to work with a spirit of cooperation, we're going to constantly have this problem of division.
Well, I want to say something here, because I think there are those who would say that we participate in some of that disrespect. And I have absolutely all disrespect in the world for the mayor of Savannah. As a matter of fact, I think he's probably one of the most talented politicians I've ever seen. You know, he's an amazing communicator, a great crisis manager. We have a fundamental problem with his policy outlook. It's not personal. It has nothing to do with his personality. It has everything to do with the policy choices that not only he's not making now, but did not make during his 16-year career as the first district alderman. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. It doesn't mean we think bad about him. No. It means we don't agree with some of the things that he has an outlook on as a government official. And that's okay. You know, it doesn't mean that we need to hate each other. It just means we're going to have to agree to disagree. And you need to, and if he wants to come on here, I mean, we will host him and any of the alderwomen, you know, that want to come on and talk to the people. I'm happy to host that discussion. I'm happy to talk to him about it. I've reached out to him during the term and haven't heard back. But again, I think it's systemic. It's not on one side. It's at the school board, like you said. You brought up a great point. The school board has been one of the most divided sections of government in town, almost so that we've intentionally stayed away from it because it's so toxic. You know, the delegation has always been an even split. The county commission, while it's been majority Democratic, you know, never really seems to have a majority Democratic representation in terms of policy outcomes. So, you know, I think you bring a perspective. You know, every time I hear you speak, you know, it makes me think of Principal Joe Clark, you know, from Lean on Me, you know, circa 1989 there, Gator. You know, I think we need more Joe Clarks in politics here in Chatham County.
And to show you how right you are, because, you know, if you got a young man that's coaching a program, let's say a young man was coaching the program that Joe Carter came in to take over, and he comes in just as a volunteer. And this kid tells him, say, well, now listen, I'm only going to give you 30 minutes to work with the team a week, and you cannot sit on the bench during the game. And then what made that bad? See, it was a teaching point there, that a teaching moment there, that the assistant principal as well as the athletic director could have stepped in and said, no, now listen, son, you know, you can learn some things from this man, but you know, you're not gonna learn nothing 30 minutes a week. You know, you got to spend some time in this man's head, or in this person's head, to really get the knowledge you need to move forward. That, I think that's what's happening in some of our politics. Our older leaders are saying to the young ones, you don't have to respect authority. You don't have to respect this man's knowledge. You know, I mean, that was embarrassing to me for this young man to say it, but it wasn't embarrassing to the athletic director because he nurtured it.
Let me ask Gator a policy question, because
Sure.
I know
we're getting ready to be at the end here, but go ahead.
Okay. Gator, I know your district doesn't have any unincorporated area in it, but you're still going to be one of 9 votes. And a lot of the voting that you'll be asked to make will be on county-wide issues and unincorporated issues, because everyone votes, not just the unincorporated people. So recently, Lee Smith, the county manager, and staff made a recommendation to the county commission that in the unincorporated areas, by ordinance, people will have to subscribe to a fire service for fire protection. Right now, it's kind of on the honor system. And I believe only about 80% of the buildings in the unincorporated area are actually signed up and paying. How would you vote, or what do you think? Is it a good idea to go ahead and try to get everybody to get on the same page and pay their fees and support the fire system?
I mean, if we talk about all the people, then, you know,
all means all
the people to participate, you know,
right.
I mean, you know, it may hurt a little bit, you know, and you may have to ask for help, but on the same token, it's got to be in our minds that we are responsible, you know, and we deserve whatever we get, you know, we work for it, and we deserve what we get, especially if we pay for it. Okay. If you don't pay for it, you know, you deserve what you get. If you don't pay nothing, you know, you basically don't get nothing. But the bottom line is, I mean, we all have to take responsibility. And I think that it should be on all of us to try to do what we can to make everybody safe, to make everybody's home safe, you know, in this situation. You know, in politics, we know it should be about the people. It should be about all the people, not just some of the people. And we remember back in the day when Floyd Adams became mayor. Floyd was a mayor for all the people. You know, he wasn't, to me, he was about everybody, you know, not just his people, but he was about everybody. And I think that's why he was respected so much during his leadership.
You're absolutely right. When I was on the commission, Floyd was mayor, and I had nothing but respect. I didn't always agree with Floyd, but I had total respect for him, and his demeanor was a pleasure to work with.
Yeah.
And I want to say, there's no doubt in my mind that your whole trip is teamwork and unity. And I think that's a great quality you have, Gator.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
John,
well, we really appreciate you setting aside. I know we were a few minutes late to get live because of the technical difficulties. So we appreciate the extra time. Why don't you take the last few minutes here and just tell voters how they can find you and get in touch with you, whether it's your phone number or Facebook or what have you. You know, there's 30 days left until the election. A lot of people are voting now via absentee ballots. Why don't you tell people, in your conclusion here, your closing thoughts?
Well, you can always get in touch with me at area code 912-436-5614. My email, vote Gator Rivers, # vote Gator Rivers at gmail.com. You can find me there. But above all, you could probably find me just about any place, because I'm always out, and because I'm always dealing with the kids. This whole venture for me has been somewhat fun, because because it's given me an opportunity to really tell people who I am. A lot of people think they know me. A lot of people know me. A lot of people don't know me. But I think people are getting to learn about me and learning that I'm not just a basketball player. I'm not just Laura Rivers' son who sold moonshine whiskey on 46th Street. God blessed me with a talent and blessed me with enough wisdom, to use that talent and to gain the knowledge and understanding I need to give counsel. I didn't just decide to do this off the top of my head. I was able to prepare myself for this position through an education, a college education, as well as an education in the game of basketball, because we know basketball is a microcosm of life, and some of those same principles, like I told the guy the other day. When James Naismith invented the game of basketball, he took the Bible and set it over here and a notebook over here. And he took 13 principles from the Bible and he instilled those principles in the game of basketball. And those same 13 principles are available today in the game of basketball, which makes it one of the greatest games in the world, because it was the only game invented. It's the only game invented. And I guess that's why I love it so much. But being able to talk to people about who I am and what I plan to do has really been a lot of fun to me, because it got me away from just talking basketball. But again, basketball is life to me.
I think you're
Gator,
a 3-point shot, Gator.
A 3-point shot. I love that. I love that. I was gonna say I think he's an all-star, but you're very likable. I think you're a statesman of sorts for Chatham County, and at least could be if you are elected. I just want to give a couple of housekeeping notes, John, while we were alive here. 1 week from today, we will host a forum live for the 2 7th district candidates after the incumbent agreed to debate his opponent. We are opposed to that incumbent and have supported his opponent, but for that reason, we're going to have a guest moderator, Mr. Jeff Reno, former county commissioner himself from the 1st district, I believe, John, is where
Correct.
He was.
Correct.
And so that will be next week, Thursday, October 8th, broadcast live here, pending technical difficulties at 7 p.m. So I do appreciate everyone that turned out to watch us live, and the hundreds who will watch us on replay after. Thank you for taking your time to educate yourself on these voters. We really appreciate your time, Gator, and we ask that you stay safe out on the campaign trail, and we wish you the best of luck, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gator.
Welcome.
John, thank you.
Have a good night.